Hello everyone, I'm Redmond, host of Oversea Ghost. The story I'm sharing today comes from Thailand, dating back to 2014. It centers on a freelance instructor working at a scout camp, a setting that is supposed to be about discipline, learning, and outdoor adventure. However, this particular camp had a reputation and a history that the visiting schools didn't know about. What started as a standard 3-day camp for a large group of students quickly turned into a series of unsettling events that the instructors struggled to explain. The events took place in 2014. We'll call the narrator Mr. Kent. He was a school teacher who taught the scout subject, but he also worked as a freelance instructor, traveling from camp to camp whenever he was hired to train the children. He wasn't permanently based at the specific camp where this occurred, but was brought in as external staff. On this particular occasion, Mr. Kent was lecturing a group of scouts from a school in Surin province. The school had traveled from Surin in a convoy of about 12 buses for a 3-day, 2-night camp. When the buses arrived, Mr. Kent and the other instructors welcomed the scouts, the girl guides, and the school's faculty. They held the opening ceremony and then moved straight into the day's schedule. The morning plan involved recreational activities and learning knots, specifically which knots were best for securely tying things to trees. The afternoon was set aside for adventure-based activities. Mr. Kent and the staff divided the students into groups to rotate through a walk-rally-style course. These bases were set up in the forest, connected by small, winding paths. Once the groups were formed, the first team began their activities. While the other groups were following along, one scout suddenly felt the urgent need to urinate. Without notifying an instructor or his friends, the boy stepped away to relieve himself at the base of a large tree. When he ran back to rejoin his group, he began showing unusual symptoms. He told his friends he felt dizzy and was on the verge of fainting. Before the activities had started, an instructor had explicitly asked if anyone was unwell or had pre-existing conditions, as those students would be separated for their safety. The bases ran continuously and took a long time to complete, so the staff feared an accident if someone collapsed in the woods. The boys' friends ran to tell a teacher that something was wrong, that their friend was dizzy and about to pass out. Mr. Kent instructed the instructor responsible for surveying the area to take the scout to the infirmary immediately. After the boy was taken for first aid, the remaining groups continued with the activities as planned. They rotated from base to base, finishing around 4 p.m. The students were covered in dirt and mud, as some stations required them to crawl through water and muck. They were dismissed to shower and told to wait for a whistle signal at 5 p.m., which would call them to assemble for dinner. While the students were showering, Mr. Kent went to check on the boy at the infirmary. He was worried because the boy's condition had seemed more serious than a simple fainting spell. When he arrived, however, the infirmary was empty. He called the instructor who had transported the boy. "You said you brought him to the infirmary," Mr. Kent said, "but I'm here and there's no one." The instructor replied, "Oh, sir, when I got there, his condition was very severe. He had a high fever and was delirious, so he's been sent to the hospital." At first, Mr. Kent assumed the boy might have had an undisclosed condition, or perhaps malaria. He told the instructor to ensure the boy was well cared for, while he stayed behind to manage the camp activities. At 5 p.m., the whistle blew, and the students gathered. After receiving instructions, they had dinner, followed by evening activities like compass reading and recreational lessons. When it was time to dismiss everyone to their dormitories for the night, the head instructor asked Mr. Kent to make an announcement. Any students who identified as third gender should separate from the main groups. Mr. Kent made the announcement, and about 17 students came forward. He explained that they were being separated to provide them with a special dormitory. It was considered inappropriate for them to sleep in the girls' dorms, and he was concerned they might face bullying if they stayed with the boys. Everyone agreed to the arrangement. The 17 students grabbed their bags, and Mr. Kent led them to a separate building. It was an old infirmary that was no longer in regular use, but served as a backup dormitory when large schools visited and beds were scarce. He settled the group into this building for the night. After dropping them off, Mr. Kent began patrolling the grounds to ensure order, checking that no one was playing with flashlights or talking loudly. He recalled that the children were exceptionally well behaved that night. The camp was quiet. He checked every building until only the last one remained, the old infirmary where the third gender group was staying. It was the furthest building from the center. He briefly discussed with another instructor whether they needed to check it, noting that it seemed silent. Since the group had been well behaved when he left them, he assumed they were all asleep and decided to let them be. Around 11 p.m., as the instructors were preparing to go to bed, screams mixed with shouting suddenly erupted from dormitory 4, a girl guide's dorm. Mr. Kent and the other staff rushed over to see what was happening. Initially, they thought a snake might have entered the room, or perhaps the girls were screaming at a spider or a gecko. When they arrived, they found one girl guide unconscious on the floor, while her friends looked on in terror. Mr. Kent and the staff alerted the homeroom teacher and had the unconscious girl carried to the infirmary. They then asked the other students what had happened. A witness explained that her friend, the girl who had fainted, had woken up and tried to get someone to go to the bathroom with her. When no one would wake up, she decided to go alone. The witness saw her friend walking toward the bathroom, but just as she reached the door, she stopped, turned around, and looked up at the ceiling beam. Then she screamed and collapsed. Mr. Kent understood the sequence of events, but didn't know what the girl could have seen to cause such a reaction. He instructed everyone to go back to sleep and tried to calm their fears. Then the instructors returned to their quarters. The rest of the night passed without incident. In the morning, Mr. Kent sought out the homeroom teacher to ask if the girl was awake and if she had said anything. The teacher explained that when the girl woke up, she just cried continuously. Once she calmed down, she recounted what happened. She said she had tried to wake a friend to go to the bathroom, but ended up going alone. As she reached the dormitory door, she heard a woman laughing behind her. She turned around and saw a woman in a white dress sitting on the central beam of the dormitory, legs dangling down. The woman's hair was so long it touched the floor. Terrified, the girl screamed and fainted. She said that image was the last thing she saw before everything went black. Mr. Kent didn't know what to do other than to advise the teacher to keep the story quiet for now so the other children wouldn't panic. Then he went to the dining hall to organize breakfast. Suddenly, one of the third gender students ran up to him, looking panicked and serious. "Teacher," the student asked, "didn't you sleep last night? We saw you walking back and forth past our window from midnight until morning." The other instructors exchanged puzzled glances, and Mr. Kent looked at them confused. He decided to lie to keep the student calm. "Oh, that was me. I was just worried you all wouldn't be able to sleep." The student replied, "The reason we couldn't sleep was because you teachers were walking so loudly, we couldn't get any rest at all." The group walked away, leaving Mr. Kent and the staff wondering what was going on. First, the incident in dormitory 4, and now this disturbance at the old infirmary. They had breakfast, followed by a long-distance hike and an evening campfire. That second night seemed entirely normal. There were no strange stories, no screams from the girls' dormitory, and no reports from the third gender group. Mr. Kent hoped the trouble was over. On the final day, Mr. Kent held the closing ceremony and handed the students back to their school teachers. They walked the group to the parking lot at the front of the camp. After a head count confirmed everyone was present, the buses refused to leave. Mr. Kent went to ask one of the drivers what the problem was. The driver said, "There's someone who wants to go back to Surin with us." Confused, Mr. Kent asked who it was. The driver explained that the previous night, he and some other drivers were sitting in a circle, eating and drinking. They were speaking Khmer, the local dialect common in that region. He saw a man walk out of a dark corner near the camp's fence. The stranger spoke to them in Khmer, asking where they were from. The driver replied that they were from Surin. The man then asked if their destination was near the Cambodian border. The driver said it was, close, only about 30 kilometers away. The man then said, "In that case, can I get a ride back with you in the morning?" Thinking the man was a local from the same area, the driver agreed. While Mr. Kent was listening to this, an elderly woman who ran a shop next to the scout camp overheard the conversation. She called out to the bus driver, "Just go, young man. Don't wait. There's no one for you to take back. Just go. You don't have to wait." This confused Mr. Kent even more. The driver looked equally puzzled, but eventually walked back to his bus. Mr. Kent turned to the woman. "Ma'am, what did you mean by that?" "Teacher," she said, "you aren't the first instructor to ask me this." She revealed that the area used to be a battlefield. Because it is situated near Buriram and Surin, her grandparents had told her that many people died there in the old days. Decades later, villagers claimed the land for farming, and eventually the owner of this scout camp bought the land to open a resort. The resort business failed, so he converted the property into a scout camp. But the story doesn't end there. After the camp opened, several tragedies occurred. She asked, "Teacher, have you noticed the adventure base that is suspended, the one they call the alien base?" It was a base with a tall tower and a zip line that stretched across a pond. The activity involved children zip-lining down and dropping into the water. "Yes, I remember," Mr. Kent said. "The camp told us it was out of order." "That's not the real reason," the woman said. "A scout once zip-lined down and drowned in the water for reasons no one understands. The child was wearing a life jacket and full safety gear. When he started drowning, an instructor jumped in to save him. Both the instructor and the scout died in the pond." She continued with a second incident involving a child from another school. This student had asthma but hadn't informed the staff. Back then, instructors didn't walk with every group. The students moved between points on their own. During a long-distance hike, the asthmatic child had an attack and collapsed. His friends, thinking he just needed a break, left him under a shady tree and kept walking. By the time they reached a base and told an instructor, too much time had passed. When help arrived, the child lying under the tree had already passed away. "Why didn't his friends bring him along?" Mr. Kent asked. "They were just kids," she replied. "What would they know?" "And about the bus driver saying a man wanted a ride to Sudan," she added. "Do you want to know about that?" She explained that the man was not a living person. Whenever a school comes from Sudan or Buriram, specifically if there are people who speak Khmer, this man appears and asks for a ride home. "Go take a look," she said. "Next to the fence you will see an old wooden boat. The camp owner once dreamed that a man rose from the pond and asked to be pulled up because he was cold. The owner hired professional divers to search the bottom of the pond. Sure enough, they found that exact boat submerged there." Mr. Kent then asked, "Ma'am, what about last night? A girl saw a woman in her dormitory. And what about the man pacing by the old infirmary?" The woman looked at him and said, "Is that still happening?" She explained that when the camp first opened, the owner hired a married couple to work and live on the property permanently. The husband was an alcoholic and frequently argued with his wife. One day, the husband went out to drink at her stop with his friends. His wife came looking for him, and they got into a heated argument that turned physical. The shopkeeper and others intervened, telling the wife to go back to their room and cool off. The husband told his wife, "If you don't come back now, you will never see my face again." Then she walked back to the camp. Everyone thought she was just speaking out of anger, as they fought all the time. The husband's friends calmed him down, and eventually he went back to their room to reconcile, but he couldn't find her. It turned out his wife had hanged herself from the rafters of what is now Dormitory 4. Devastated and never imagining she would actually take her own life, the husband walked to the side of their living quarters and used a knife to slit his own throat. Mr. Kent asked, "Where was the room where that happened? Has it been torn down?" "The old infirmary," the woman replied. Mr. Kent was stunned. Don't tell me that what the third gender student saw was the ghost of this man. The woman confirmed that the building used to be the workers' living quarters. After the suicide, the camp converted it into an infirmary. Later, when a new infirmary was built, that building became a supplementary dormitory used only when the camp was overcrowded with around 700 children. If fewer children visited, the building remained empty. As for Dormitory 4, she noted that after they made merit and conducted rituals to invite the spirit to leave, sightings had become rare, though clearly not impossible. After hearing the entire history, Mr. Kent raised his hands in a gesture of respect to the woman, excused himself to pack his gear, and left to lecture at another camp. He says he has never returned to that location since. He also never received any further news about the boy who fell ill after urinating at the big tree, and to this day he doesn't know what happened to him. Mr. Kent described it as a terrifying experience, even though he didn't see anything himself. But piecing together what the children saw and what the old woman revealed, he is certain that the camp is truly haunted. Thank you for joining me for this story. Oversea Ghost is a new channel, and I'm still finding my way. If you have feedback, suggestions for future topics, or a local legend from your own corner of the world, please share it in the comments below. Your input is what will help this channel grow and improve. If you enjoyed this journey into the unexplained, please help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who loves a good mystery. It truly makes all the difference. Until next time, this is Redmond signing off. Stay curious and take care.